So from The Taming of the Shrew by Shakespeare, in the induction, scene 2, lines 68 to 75. Am I a lord and have I such a lady? Or do I dream? Or have I dreamed till now? I do not sleep. I see, I hear, I speak. I smell sweet savors and I feel soft things. Upon my life I am a lord indeed, and not a tinker, nor Christopher Sly. We'll bring our lady hither to our sight, and once again a pot of the smells. So it starts in the induction with him being taken away. Well, he's found drunk and a wealthy lord and a huntsman after a hunting trip. His hunting party they want to play a joke on him, so they take him in, a poor beggar, and they dress him up and offer him nice things. And so they tell me stories that he's like a wealthy lord, and Sly begins to like in this quote he begins to start believing what they're saying, but at the end he says, and once again a pot of the smallest ale. So he's like he says this because I think he says this because he's still skeptical, even after they offer him sack, which is imported white wine from Spain, which is really expensive, and concerts, which are sweet jams made from fruit, which are also expensive and better what he normally eats because he's a beggar, and so he rejects those, and he once again asks for a pot of the smallest ale because he just wants a cheap beer because he doesn't like he's not 100% and he hasn't like settled in and like he doesn't fully believe what they say. Um, so he's skeptical, and I think that's parallel to the play that he watches, The Taming of the Shrew. I think it's parallel to Baptista Minola, the father of Bianca and Kate. When Tranio and Gremio, they're trying to offer the highest dower. They're like bragging about like how much like wealth they have, and when Lucentia says he has like several ships, like dozens of merchant ships, Baptista's like very impressed, and he says if he can get his fathers to like confirm the dower, then he can have his consent. And so I think that's just showing an example of how like Sly is parallel, like his actions, the actions, like the events that happen to Sly are parallel to what happens to the events in the Taming of the Shrew, the play that he watches. And I think because Sly is parallel, I think it'd be interesting, since and Shakespeare never tells us what happens to Sly after he watches the play. Like it never gets back to him after the Taming of the Shrew ends. So I think it'd be interesting, if this were continued and went back to Sly. I think they would probably tame him the same way that Kay was tamed by Petruchio. They would like fix his bad manners because he's like a poor, aggressive alcoholic, and I think I think it'd make sense for Sly to be tamed and broken the same way that Kay was broken by Petruchio because she was unloyal and like aggressive as well. And so because Sly is parallel, I think it could be plausible that's something that would happen to him after the play. 1 minute, sorry.
So yeah, I think that Christopher Sly is definitely a parallel to Catherine in that he's like shrew-like banner. But for your question as to why they don't get back to him in the play, I think that the answer to that question is because there's no Bianca, there's no like incentive to tame Sly. Like they were just like playing a prank on him. And basically one of the main reasons why Catherine was tamed was because she had a much more desirable younger sister, Bianca, and she could only get married before Catherine did. So Catherine had to get married first, and in order for that to happen, they had to like tame her and make her suitable as a wife for Petruchio. So I think that's one of the reasons why they don't bother to tame Sly in the play or get back to him or really use him as anything other than an induction. So
You have 8 seconds.
that's recording, right? Check.
Yeah, 1 minute, sorry.
I think like after the play is over, when you're talking about if Sly comes back in the like play afterwards and gets tamed, I don't think he does either. I feel like the Lord from the induction, I think the Lord puts him back on the street after just to taunt him of what he did. I feel like it was like the prank that they put on him was just like a short-term thing, and I felt like Sly realized like the truth afterwards and what happened. So I believe like the play had much to do with what Sly had to do.
You have 15 seconds.
And
3 seconds. Okay.
Can you put it here?
Yeah, so I agree with what you guys said. I think that's actually interesting about what you said about Sly, and how they'll like throw him out, and because like Sly like realizes something. I think that's interesting because in the Taming the Shrew, the play that he watches, Hortensio gives up on trying to woo Bianca uh, when they're like disguised as the tutors. When Lucentio is the Latin teacher, Hortensio like sees that Bianca's like not loyal, and so he gives up on her. Uh, that might be like the same way that the wealthy lord might give up on Sly and just like throw him out of the house. I think that'd be pretty interesting as well, because that also like relates to the play that he watches. And yeah,
So I'll get my stuff ready.
Is it done?
there's 2 seconds. Good.
So in Taming the Shrew, Act 3, Scene 2, Patricio, the whole, not really family, but group of couples is at the wedding. And this is after Catherine has been wed to him. And Patricio says, "Be mad and merry, or go hang yourselves. But for my bonny Kate, she must with me. Nay, look not big, nor stamp, nor stare, nor fret. I will be master of what is mine own. She is my goods, my chattels, she is my house, my household stuff, my field, my barn, my horse, my ox, my ass, my anything. And here she stands, touch her whoever dare. I'll bring mine action on the proudest heed that stops my way in Padua, Grumio. Draw forth thy weapon, we are beset with thieves. Rescue thy mistress if thou be man. Fear not, sweet wench, they shall not touch thee, Kate. I'll buckler thee against a million." And basically, Patricio exits with Catherine, and at that time, he further goes to his house and tames her. And one of the questions I wanted to bring up is as to why Patricio tames her the way he does. Like, why does he starve her and berate her and servants in his house? Like, why is that like a good way to tame her? So that's just a question I found interesting. And and it's sort of treats her as property. He says that she is my chattels, which means property, goods. And I was just curious to know as to why he felt that was like an acceptable way to treat her, and why like starving her in all those ways were like why was that the way he tamed her as he did. So yeah. You go first.
There you go.
What? So,
There you
oh, what you thought about what he said?
Okay, so what I thought was, to your question is like, I think the reason he tamed her the way he did is because men back in the like middle age, like back in that day, used to treat women as property and like not as like another person. They used to treat women as like if they're just like a possession and they can trade off for another value of sorts. And so like I think that's the reason why Patricio didn't give much respect to Katharina as he should have. And also, I think because like when he went to the city where Katharina was from, people saw her as like a person who was like very like who used to like fight a lot against other people and like used to argue and like have disputes with other people. So like since like no one else could like change her and like she was very like hard to convince and like persuade. I think the only way he had like the only reason he like put her like starved her and like didn't let her sleep was because that like was more effective that way. It was like a more harsher way, a more harsher approach to it.
I think that was interesting. But yeah, it's definitely has something to do with history and how like back then, like even in the beginning, like Sly calls the hostess from the ale house like a prostitute or something. I think he calls her like baggage, and just like women weren't respected back then. But another reason why like Patricia like tamed her like so harshly, I think is because like people like everyone in the whole town like knew that she was like cursed and like shrewd and she was like awful, and it's like the only way to like control her was because was to like I guess torture her kind of, and another point was that like he he like treats her like property. Uh, also, I think it's also important that like I think another thing that Patricia was thinking was like he wanted to like hang on to that property. Like he didn't want her to leave, and like a relationship also wouldn't work if you don't control the wife. If she's like aggressive like that, like it wouldn't work. So like Patricia was like trying to make sure like he gets what he wants. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Oh, he has to do his 1 minute. So.
Oh yeah.
Oh, never mind.
I guess this is my 1 minute. So yeah, I think since women were objectified back in that day, that they were like seen as property or whatever, and were treated as so. And so another thing I wanted to go back on said, if you're not sweet wench, they shall not touch thee, Kate. I'll buckle thee against a million. So at this moment, they're on like the wedding or whatever, and he's trying to act more like defensive towards Kate. But then they go home, and he's like verbally more aggressive and starves her and tames her. Say. So I thought that was interesting because Baptista's there.
Okay. You ready?
So,
They're recording?
it's recording. We're
Right,
gonna snip
go.
all this out. So near the end of the play, when they're at the party, the party and feast back at Kate's hometown, she Patricio, her husband, like has a bet with these other guys, and then to see who's more loyal, and then Kate Kate goes and talks about loyalty, and she says that thy husband is thy lord, and thy life thy keeper, thy head, thy sovereign, one that cares for thee, and for thy maintenance commits his body. This, which is in Act 5, Scene 2, lines 162 to 164. This quote shows how Kate has changed from the beginning of the play. How Kate changed from someone who used to be like super disobedient to someone who's like super loyal, and it adds on to it shows in contrast to what Bianca is right now, because Bianca used to be the super loyal one that the city used, like everyone in the city used, like wished to, like hope to want, and then Kate used to look like the super disobedient and the girl that no man wanted. But however, like after Kate gets tamed, Patricia shows her off, and then she turns into the loyal and obedient one, while Lucentio sees Bianca as someone who's turning more disobedient, more disloyal, as opposed to what he thought she was earlier in the book. I feel like Shakespeare included this in the play, like the relationship between the two sisters, Bianca and Katharina, to show like the how like they're foil characters to one another in the play, because they're like opposites, like the way they act in the beginning, and in the end they're also the opposites, but they switch roles like by the time it ends, and how the relationships between Patricia and Katharina, and Bianca and Lucentio have changed throughout the story, like how Bianca and Lucentio used to like fantasy each other and like think of like imagine all this, like it was like a more of a more of a short-term thing, while Patricio just took Katharina and then changed her into the girl he wanted. And then my question was, if you guys thought that Shakespeare included Katharina and Bianca for a reason in the play.
Well, yeah, Bianca and Kate definitely like they're like the main like part of the play, but yeah, I definitely noticed that he like intentionally like made their characters like show the contrast. Like Bianca starts off in the beginning, she's like an angel, everyone wants her, and then Kate is like this evil, like wretched thing like you don't even want to talk to. And then towards the end they just flip. I thought that was really interesting. I think that's what made like the play like really
Yeah.
good, is that Kate ends up in the end being like this perfect wife, like this perfect model, and then Bianca's like not as loyal as what Kate was, and that was just like unexpected, and that definitely is a foil because it shows the gap. Uh, in the beginning, Kate's like down here, she's like awful. Bianca's like up there. It shows like they like worship Bianca and they like hate Kate, and it shows that gap. So there's definitely is a foil there, and in the end it flips. Kate's up there, she's obedient. Bianca's like not as like loyal as she is, and yeah, that's what foil characters is. So there definitely was like an intentional thing right there.
So although I think Shakespeare included them for a reason, but I don't know if they're foils. I actually disagree. And although when Petruchio called his wife in The Widow and Bianca stayed behind, and Catherine came, that could have just been like a in the moment kind of thing. It doesn't show any long term like disobedience for Catherine, but also at the same time doesn't show like an acute change of obedience in Bianca or the Widow, who were originally seen as desirable women for the men. And so yeah, I don't know if Catherine and Bianca were foils, so to say, because although they were like different, it's not like Catherine was different and then they starkly switch roles, where Bianca's all of a sudden this disobedient, like swearing at others kind of girl, and Catherine's like the ideal. It just shows that she was like tamed, I guess. I just don't know how accurately you could, how like with such certainty you could call them foils, so to say.
1 minute.
Yeah. So, in the end, I feel like they are foils, even though, you believe that there were more of a, it was just more of some minor differences between the two characters instead of like, instead of Shakespeare purposefully including them. But I feel like Shakespeare like included them like intentionally to help the plot go through, because the foil characters help demonstrate like the two different types of women there were back in the day, or just to like show how women were treated by like their husbands, and how they like had to change for them, or how they changed like by themselves for their husbands. And yeah, it's about it.
Yeah. Wait, what? Okay. Just give like a. Alright, this is our debrief. We're gonna do a 30-second summary about what we talked about. So, in my quote, Sly has been kidnapped by, well, not kidnapped, but he's been like taken in by the Lord in his train, and they made him, they made Sly into a lord, and he's just like still skeptical, and so that made me think that Sly is parallel to the play, and we all agree that Sly is parallel to the play, and so, yeah.
Basically, my quote was talking about Petruchio's taming process for Catherine, and as why he tamed her the way he did. And basically, we all agree that since she was a shrew and disobedient, disloyal, all these kinds of things, so that he needed to be like aggressive, and that's how most men put up with women back in that time period, was being aggressive and maybe verbally abusive, physically abusive, maybe, and as a way to tame women.
Okay, what I talked about was like the foil between Bianca and Katharina, because in the play Shakespeare sets them up as foils, as by being sisters, and how one Katharina started obedient and Katharina started disobedient and she turns obedient, while Bianca was like what used to be like really nice and like the girl everyone wanted, and turned out to be someone that no one wanted to be around. Close enough.